western part of town and then down between Brooks and French.
North.
No, stop looking.
Between us and Genoa.
What's north?
Okay. Yeah, Ledyard and Preble and some areas north.
Oh, that's right.
Let's start looking, okay?
How's it
Good
look?
evening, everyone. We please rise, pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ready for roll call then?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Amber Benson,
Here.
Doug Dake,
Here.
Bronwyn Losi, Joseph Wetmore,
Here.
Edward Levine.
Here. So, item 4, shall we go in your packet, privilege of the floor? I don't see anybody locally that wants privilege of the floor. CJ, do you have anybody?
No one is,
No one.
I don't believe we're having people here for those.
No, you're absolutely right, there's no one.
No worries.
Can I take a moment? I just want to congratulate Kyle and Doug for the bronze medal that you got at the Olympics. I think that's a really outstanding thing for your family and for Lansing as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Appreciate it, thank you.
Somebody
Yeah, it was a
was,
great turnout for you guys for that celebration.
yeah, and somebody just,
No. You might want to ask, because I didn't think there was someone for privilege before.
I can wait. You may have someone testing.
maybe he's going to.
Thank you. Okay, so we have the privilege of the floor open, and I have someone, Elizabeth, I apologize in advance if I mispronounce your name. Is it Huger?
It's Hujar.
Hujar, okay. So, Ms. Hujar, please, if you'd like to sit here in front of the microphone,
Oh, sure.
and you have privilege of the floor, and there is a information sheet that shows what the criteria is for that. We'll have to have for 3 minutes, so please.
Right, shall I start now?
Please, yes.
Okay. So I'm here as a follow-up to a correspondence with the town board about this past weekend. I experienced the clubhouse across the street at 320 Peruville Road playing extremely loud music to the point that I could understand the words and feel the bass vibrating in my house. That was from the early evening until 11:40 p.m. on Saturday. This occurred despite several calls to the sheriff. The sheriff I spoke to said he prefers not to shut down parties unless it's like 3 a.m., but he said they investigated. I suspect they didn't return to shut down the party, since the music was still playing hours after I called. Following all this, I researched the property and discovered that it was recently approved for a special use permit to have a turf soccer field built even closer to my home than the clubhouse, with 18-foot lights overhead. As a Tompkins County government employee, I believe in the importance of notification in advance of anything that could affect quality of life. It's my understanding that homes within 600 feet are to be notified about special use permit applications. I didn't receive a letter in the mail about this. Although my home is 826 square feet from the clubhouse, it's about 350 feet from the proposed turf location. So it would have been helpful to be notified about this. I'm concerned about the potential for music blasting outdoors even closer to my home, the likelihood that there will be more frequent noise late at night due to the lights keeping people after dark, and the turf chemicals getting into my well water. This is very important, as I have already needed surgeries to remove cysts, and they are prone to returning if environmental contaminants are an issue. As a new parent juggling work and early bedtime schedules and everything in between, these issues would be extremely disruptive if this turf were to be installed so close to home. I closed on my house on February 25th with the understanding that this was a quiet family neighborhood in what was originally planned to be a reforestation community. As such, it was a reasonable expectation that neighbors would not harm my property environmentally or create excessive noise. I understand that the special use permit requires that vibration, glare, odor, heat, and noise anticipated from the proposed use are mitigated. I've already experienced excessive vibration and noise, and a turf field with overhead lights would likely involve increased glare, odor, and heat. This property is looking like it's about to become a burden on the quality of life of local property owners, and I ask that the issues I've described be prevented for those that have not happened and eliminated for those that have. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
What is your address again?
It's 14 Farm Pond Circle.
If you'd like to make a copy of that, if you have a copy,
Yes.
put it in the record,
Okay,
remake, that would be fantastic.
okay. Shall I send it over email?
You can do it if you like, sure.
Okay, I can send that. Thank you.
Forward it on. You have our email address or the clerk's email address, which one would you like to use?
Okay, yeah, I'll use the email address. Email address.
Okay, I can give you mine, it's sent to me, I'll distribute it to board members.
Okay, thank you.
And how long did the noise go on for?
Over the weekend, it was from early evening, I can't remember exactly which time, maybe around 6 until 11:40 PM.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to exercise privilege of the floor? If not, let's move on.
Well, I got a quick question. CJ, is this the soccer field that's been talked about before the planning board?
Yes, that's correct. The Plaza turf field that's proposed is currently undergoing site plan review. So I don't know where they left off of that development review, but the ability to carry out the full scope of the project is contingent on planning board approval, the site plan approval of that project, which is currently under review.
Yeah, I'm concerned the neighbor didn't get notified on that.
Okay. Joe, you have 2 minutes to respond. There's no conversation back and forth, so if you want to respond yourself for a maximum 2 minutes, that's fine. But we have to follow the template of your please.
Okay.
We're also going to address this later on in the conversation, so we're not going to dismiss this, okay? But we're simply following what the protocol here is to move forward with privilege of the floor and response time, okay? Are there any other comments? Well, for the record, I too am concerned about noise, especially at 11:40 at night. I'm really concerned, especially when we're having open spaces and we're having events in open spaces and the noise. It's very difficult to put forth a noise ordinance. But on the other hand, perhaps we need to expand as far as the number of feet people get notified from on that. I hope this isn't closing the barn door once the horse got out, so to speak, but hopefully we can address some of these things and maybe ask the owners if they could perhaps mitigate this in the future.
Possibly, planning board meeting, they're still under review.
Yes, that's correct. There'll be another public hearing as well.
Once again, those are my comments, and it's simply as comments, and like move on unless any of the board members want to comment on this one issue, and that's it. Okay. So now we're going to move on to item 5.
Are we still in privilege of the floor?
Yes, would you like to come in?
I'd love to if I could.
Okay, we'll put you down. Come on.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks for fitting me in. Mike Sigler, 218 Peruville Road. Sorry I'm late. Farm Bureau is having a thing tonight, so my wife would be mad at me if I didn't get to talk to you, so I'm glad I get in. Just quickly, I know that you're going to be, I guess you're going to be voting on whether or not to approve a large solar array, or at least support it. And I'm going to ask you actually not to do that. I'm not asking you, and this is kind of crucial, I'm not asking you to vote against it. I'm just asking you not to support it. I mean, it seems to me that even though the company came and they did give out a lot of information, they were very open with questions, and I think that was noble, frankly. a lot of things went on the record that they're going to do. I've been told over and over again that it doesn't really matter what our town does. They keep saying that over and over. It doesn't matter. The state's going to take over. The state's going to tell us what we're going to do. So if it's not going to matter, why does it matter whether you vote to support it or not? I mean, I guess that's my big question. You know, we're here, we're going to vote on something we don't have a map for, we don't know what property is involved, we don't know how big the array is going to be, we don't know what the taxation is going to be like, we don't know anything, really. And yet, you know, something's going to get voted on, and supposedly that vote's not going to affect the state one way or the other. So I guess I just don't understand why the town would. So, I don't know, that's going to be coming up later. Also, I wanted to just weigh in on this other tax thing. I have a friend, she was delinquent on her tax primarily because it was mailed incorrectly. I've read the state law, I get it. You know, the fines are pretty much locked in by the state. They tell you what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. I guess the town keeps some kind of list of who is delinquent, and I guess my question is, I don't know if that's part of state law. I did not see that anywhere, that there has to be a list kept and made public of people that owe and that people who owed and then paid. I guess my question would be why we would have a list like that. So anyway, those are my two main things. Thank you very much. I mean, again, with the solar, it's going to change the face of the town. And it's not just CS Power, it's NextEra as well. So I know that we're only talking about one, but they're right next to each other. I mean, it will be the largest array in the state until they build the 5,000-acre one somewhere else, but it would be the largest array. I do want to thank CS Power for being so open and answering questions last meeting. A lot of people really appreciated that. They appreciated the talk out in the parking lot. But again, that wasn't all the questions people have, and there's going to be a lot more. And I hope those questions get asked and answered. And again, not asking you to vote against it. I just kind of don't really know why we would support it at this early date. So thank you very much.
Any comments from the board members? Okay, let's move on to item 5, if no one else is here for food on the floor. Presentation, Hugo Lake Watershed Intermunicipal Organization, Liz Thomas, Chairperson. CJ, we let her in? Yep. Hi.
Hey Liz, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. I see CJ out on the boat, and it looks like a place wherever you are. Or the time of the future.
So Liz, thank you.
Oh, that was more like what I was expecting.
Okay. So Liz, thank you for being available to give us this valuable information. If you would please hopefully keep it to about 15 minutes. We really appreciate that. And then we'll have time for questions if there are any, okay?
Yep. Let's see, is it possible to share? Yes, it is possible to share the screen, so let me do that. And get this up. Can you see it?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great, wonderful. Okay, well, thank you again for inviting me, and because I know you're all very busy. My name is Liz Thomas, and the reason I know you're busy is because I also used to sit on the town board for Ulysses for 12 years, and aided that as town supervisor, so I know you're really busy, and I appreciate you for your service, really. Some of my background besides that is that I was a crop consultant for 14 years and worked for a corporate extension in what's called integrated pest management. So my background is actually in agriculture. And now I'm retired, and the only thing that I'm doing is this, besides, well, I'm doing a lot of things, but my volunteer work is for the Hugo Lake Watershed Intermunicipal Organization, or HUYO for short. So I'm here tonight just to give you a better idea of what MEOS, what it is and what our goals are for the future. There are many organizations working on them in the watershed, and it is confusing. CLEO is simply the organization working for municipalities. It's often confused with the Cumulative Watershed Network, which is our sister organization, and most lakes in the Finger Lakes are set up this way with a municipal organization and a sort of public outreach one, which is what the Cumulative Watershed Network is doing. Not to be confused with the Community Science Institute, which is also working watershed-wide, and they do great work on monitoring the lake. So let's look at the watershed. A quick look at the topography here. Tompkins County makes up 43% of the cumulative watershed landmass. It's the largest watershed in the Finger Lakes and part of the Lake Ontario watershed. A different way of looking at it is through the sub-watersheds, 95 miles of shoreline here. And I was going fast, so you do have this PowerPoint, so you can read the rest of this at another time. And another way of looking at this is split up by municipalities. There are 50 municipalities plus 7 counties in the watershed. It's big, it's the biggest. In 2020, we had 24 municipalities that did pay their dues. It was established in 1998 and staffed for about 3 or 4 years. And during those 3 or 4 years, they did get a lot of work done. We work off several guiding documents. One that's not up here was developed in 2000, and it's called the Watershed Characterization Report. It focuses on the physical characteristics of the lake. And then in 2001 was the first Watershed Restoration Protection Plan, which is this plan. It was updated with the help of the Watershed Network in 2017. And then in 2018, the DEC came out with this Harmful Algal Bloom Action Plan. And so they're both excellent plans that give us really good direction on specifics of what needs to be done. So let's quickly look at some of the threats, and do know these, and these are just some of them. Big ones, storm events, increased runoff, bringing sedimentation, pollutants, and damage from flooding. There's also economic loss and concerns along with that. And we are, in the forecast that goes with climate change, we're expecting higher rainfall events. Halves, are well aware of halves, and the many invasive species that we're also struggling with. So let's look at some of the solutions here. One is preventing pollution at its source. We need to take action on key projects. We know what needs to be done, but it's really a challenge to get it done. Soil and Water Conservation District offices are very important. They have key knowledge, but honestly, most of them are understaffed, and they do work primarily in ag, which is very important, but it's there's very little time for them to work with municipalities directly. CLEO is developing a living list of impactful projects that we want to see implemented. You need money for that. We need the form of grants, and in order to get a grant, you need somebody to write it and administer it. So one of the solutions, monitoring. Consistent monitoring of the lake and its tributaries is necessary to understand the threats. We need to monitor to ID and prioritize those problem areas. The state and federal governments, surprisingly, have very limited resources for monitoring, and so it does fall on the local municipalities, nonprofits, and community volunteers. So CSI, the Community Science Institute, and the Cumulative Watershed Network have really been the heroes on Cuba Lake for that. CLEO currently does not have very much in the way of funding, and so we currently give no money to monitoring. More in the solutions category, local municipalities can enact local regulations, which can have a profound impact on water quality issues. It's best management practices, not just for ag, but for all land uses. Stormwater regulations to reduce runoff, discharge laws, setbacks to waterways, septic system testing, water solutions, education and outreach to help people to understand the issues and corrective actions. And finally, coordination of efforts across the watershed is efficient because we do really have limited resources. So coordination is part of Cleo's, that really is Cleo's job. And so a watershed manager would help to make this happen. Let's look quickly at the 2021 Cleo work plan. Our income is about $20,000 a year. Historically, we've been spent on Discover Cuba Lake for the education and outreach that they do. The Cuba Lake Watershed Network has, we funded them for a lot of their roles, but primarily, again, education and outreach. We have some grant matches that we've used. We had that restoration and protection plan. And this year, for the first time, we had a teeny bit of a watershed manager's time. We're borrowing Ian Smith, who is the watershed manager for Seneca Lake Watershed. And he has been very helpful with the TMDL comments, with the funding formula we've developed. And he submitted 2 grants that will benefit this watershed. So our plan for 2021 is to increase income to pay for a full-time watershed manager to work with municipalities within the watershed by increasing our membership. We have developed a job description using the job description existing for Owasco watershed, Canandaigua, and Seneca. So we looked at all of those and have developed a job description. More on our work plan, we have 2 grants that we have to finish up. One is from the Department of State. We have 29 projects that have been submitted and prioritized on what we're calling a living list. Annually, that list will be reviewed, prioritized, and we hope to help find funding and implement those. Eventually, and originally, Cleo will have its own pot of money to help with matches on grants and to help with projects that don't have a grant category, that don't readily fit the state and federal government's categories. The state and federal government's grants are notoriously difficult to apply for and to administer. But there's a lot of money out there from both of them. And a watershed manager would help to assist Cleo and municipalities with those grants to bring more money into the watershed. We consider it a good leveraging of funding. More on our work plan is just to do outreach like this, to try and coordinate efforts. This is a simple version of some of our stakeholders. As part of that, we have a second grant that was funded by the Park Foundation to do an organizational assessment. So we reached out to all of the members of all of these different stakeholders to help us to better understand and assist municipalities in their water protection efforts. We have some examples, really good examples of coordination, particularly the Owasco watershed and Cuba County. And they have been hugely helpful to us and very encouraging to move ahead. They've taken a big lead, mostly it's the planning department time, and members of that staff work directly with municipalities to submit grants regularly for them. Canandaigua watershed also has loads of completed projects that their watershed manager has done, but they've had somebody, they've been staffed since 1999. We are working much more with counties to bring them on board because coordinating between 50 municipalities is hard. It's much easier to coordinate with the counties, so we're trying to bring them on board. This is just a different way of looking at the stakeholders with all the state programs, county, local, not-for-profits, landowners, and just those using the lake. So let's look at the or at the Finger Lakes as a whole here, where this map shows the, some of the major Finger Lakes, and Huga is the largest, and it's the only one that does not have a watershed manager. Each of these others does have a staff person. They're not always called watershed manager, they do have different titles, but they do the same job, as I found out when we were working on the job description. So, what would that person do, and what does that person do in the other watersheds? Education and outreach, promoting best management practices, sharing law legislation, writing and helping to administer grants. So, by law, municipalities are charged to protect the health, safety, and welfare of residents, and clean water logically is part of that charge. And so having someone to help with that watershed-wide would be helpful. Okay, so when the Iowa was staffed back in the early 2000s, here are some of the grants that were brought in, and then I did get an annual report from Alaska, and they've just been going great guns. They're progressing on their 9-element plan, which is equivalent to the TMDL, except they have to do that within their own watershed. They submitted watershed rules and regulations, which was a huge job. They have a mobile sign for boat launches to help with hydrilla education. They have monitoring equipment for their streams. Lots and lots of cooperation between the counties, the county planning department, soil and water, highway, their intermunicipal organization, and this watershed manager. So they are doing quite well. Just looking at just a couple of examples, this is in Canandaigua watershed, a restoration of Sucker Brook. It had some terrible water quality problems and flooding, and was remediated using grant funds. A school was flooding, and they got a grant, rebuilt the wetlands to hold the stormwater, and their flooding is no longer. So let's look at our plan. This is the CARE funding formula. So in order to get some money on board, we developed this, what we're calling the CARE funding formula. Just as a reminder, the dues for Clio have stayed flat since at $900 per municipality per year since 2004. So we're proposing a gradual change in dues. Currently, the goal is to raise $90,000 per year to support staff and projects. 2/3 of that will come from a combination of towns, city, and villages, and 1/3 from counties. This formula is based on the formulas that are already being used in Canandaigua and the watersheds, and those watershed managers were really helpful to develop that. So the calculation uses percent of land in the watershed, shoreline, population density, and then taxable assessed value. So here are the different counties and how much they would be asked, they have been asked to pay. The budget letters have gone out. This formula was voted on in June this year. And so again, Tompkins County has the most land in the watershed, the highest population, the highest taxable assessed value, and the highest amount of shoreline. So it did come out with that higher number. And Lansing is kind of quadruple hit with this. It's very high, but again, it has lots of shoreline, lots of acres in the watershed. The population density compared to some of the rural towns is higher, and the taxable assessed value is higher too. So all of those make the share of dues larger. So to ease the pain, Clio agreed to have this phased in over 3 years, so 50% in 2022, and then by 2024, 100%. Of course, the sooner we get money in, the more work that can be done. So just as a comparison, commitment from in the Alaska Lake watershed, the city of Auburn put in $200,000 in 2021, and then I can't remember if it was 2021 or 2020, I'm sorry, one of those, and the town of Wasco, 70,000. So big bucks and big commitments. The Cuba County budget actually has a water research line in the budget. And just as a reminder, this does not include funding for the Community Science Institute. So I'm pretty sure that Lansing, like the town of Ulysses, does pay for the Community Science Institute to do their work, and this does not include that. I personally would hope that we could merge that way in the future, but for now, that's not included. So in summary here, we're ramping up. We have big hopes. We have a great many volunteers, what can Lansing do? I just appreciate your prior support, and I hope we continue to support our efforts to hire a watershed manager. We will be asking for projects in 2022, so I hope that you have those ideas, that you'll submit them, and we'll try to help get some funding for them. And finally, just keep in touch, although we've got a really great representative in Bronwyn. And she's not there tonight, but she's been very dedicated at attending the meeting. And I'm always here to talk, so, our hope is not to add work to your desks because you have enough. So we'd like to be able to assist you in doing work that involves water quality protection. And so then make it in less than 15 minutes.
You were fantastic.
20 seconds.
And the only regret I have that Brown's not here tonight, because in all fairness, she was the one that actually brought this to my attention, and I'm glad she did, and that we got to meet you. Well, I know she knows you, but I got to meet you, virtually at least. And moving forward, and to your point, we give 7,000 to the watershed monitoring, which is a different service, I believe. Is that correct? Okay, so that's okay. So I just want to be on the same page with you because I'm not as smart as you were, so I have to be patient here with me. Having said that, so we're looking for a watershed monitor, right? So we're looking for someone to do this, to monitor, and you're looking for a pool of money to make that contribution, or did I mistake something here?
It will be a staff person. The watershed manager will primarily be writing grants for municipalities to implement projects. So to assist in bringing money into either to individual municipalities, but it was kind of interesting in the recent organizational assessment. We interviewed, I think it was like 65 people, and the outcome of that, there were two different outcomes. One said, focus on individual municipalities, so we're like, okay, and then the other big message was, focus watershed-wide. So, they're obviously very different, but they're both very important. Any project that gets implemented, if it's within a municipality, is very helpful. But some of them cross municipal boundaries, and so that's when we can be helpful, is to help facilitate those projects that cross municipal boundaries.
Okay, so pardon me for being direct. How much do you want? $6,000
per year.
Sorry, the town of Lansing was such a tiny number, 6,000.
That's over 3 years?
26.
Is that every year?
I'm hoping, actually that would be the full amount, so for 2022, it would be half that. Yeah. So it would be $3,013 for 2022, and I'm hoping you got that budget request that was sent out. If you didn't, I can follow up and send that.
If we didn't, we do now. Okay, so in our 2022 budget, you're looking for $3,013, is that correct? Does that happen to 60?
Yeah. I had a little bit of trouble hearing you.
Well,
it was for 2022, the $3,013. $3,013.
Yes.
Nothing for 2021.
Nothing for what?
You already there?
We
Okay.
paid the 900 already.
Thank you. I just want to have clarity on that. So we paid $900 in 2021, and you're looking for $3,013 to move forward on this for next year. And then the year after, how much are we looking for?
It will be 75% of the 6,026. I don't have that number right in front of me. Oh, actually, I do have that number right in front
Okay,
of me.
it's 4,518, that's okay. Okay, so we'll move there. I believe that, 4,000, I believe that's what it is, 4,518, that's okay.
Yeah, 4,520, yeah.
Okay, and then the year after that, 2024, it would be 6026, correct? You basically got
Right,
split up?
right.
Okay, all right, okay.
And like you say, I mean, you know, Ulysses paid I think we were paying like 8,000 for Community Science Institute to do their monitoring. And this is me speaking personally, not for Quio, but for me personally, I mean, that the Community Science Institute does a service for the entire lake. But it is, you know, that's not being spread, that ask is not being spread out across the whole watershed. So, I mean, if we could get this fair funding formula up and running, my thought is that eventually the CSI money should come from Clio. It would be more fair that way than, you know, Lansing and Ulysses and some of the ones that do pay would be, you know, there are others that don't. So it seems like it would be more fair, but
Let me
that's
just
just
make
me.
a couple more comments, and I'll turn it over to other questions from the board. First of all, obviously, environment is very important. Being on the Bolton Point Water Commission, like Joe Wetmore is, I'm very concerned, especially with more water lines going through, we have quality of water, amongst other things. And there are ways that we mitigate the HAB's concern right now, so that it is potable water coming through those pipes. The other thing is that we're all stewards of the Hugo Lake, amongst other things. So you probably already feel how I feel about this, okay? So this is a good time to do it before our budget finally gets, you know, is finalized, or at least if the tentative budget is presented to the town clerk before it moves into the preliminary. So having said that, my personal feeling is that this is money well spent. Because as you know, grants are out there for things, and this is how our world is nowadays, especially with the environment, okay? Having said that, I'll turn it over to the rest of the board. Let's go in alphabetical order. So we'll go with Andra first, if she has any comments or questions. We'll make them brief, and we'll go from there, okay?
Okay, I agree with everything that Ed said, and I think we have to be extremely good stewards of Cayuga Lake. We are so fortunate to have this. I mean, it's just incredible that we have this gorgeous lake. And I'm worried a lot about the runoff, especially from farms, since I own an organic dairy farm. And as we see the amount of rain coming down in bigger and bigger buckets, we see the runoff, and I'm very concerned about that. And concerned that others in the agricultural community don't take it maybe a little more seriously. I mean, on our sloped land, we only have pasture for the cows, and that makes a huge difference. We do not have runoff from our sloped land. So I would love to have more talks about agricultural runoff, and I would like the manager to be aware of that and to look into grants and how we could, you know, mitigate that. But I'm completely in favor of this, completely. I think it's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for your volunteerism to do this. Thank you.
So unfortunately, Brown's not here. I wish he was, because this is, like I said before, this is her moment. So we'll move on to Doug.
So Liz, do you have anybody in mind for a watershed manager?
No, nobody in mind. We did come up with this job description, which I can share with you. It's just based off of, Adam Effler is the one for Owasco Lake, and I've met him and seen some of his work. He's an excellent scientist, but really good at outreach two municipalities. He just seems to, the person has to be able to work across many stakeholders, and Adam's really good at speaking, and Ian Smith, the one for Seneca Lake, is also excellent, as is Kevin Levac. So I'm starting to, I've worked a lot with all three of them over this year and last, and so I have a good sense of what some of the strengths are that are needed in that person, but no, we don't have anyone in mind.
And what about grants, state grants and stuff like that? Or we just didn't need someone to write them, or was that be the watershed manager's job or a part of it, or?
Yeah, the state and federal grants are a pain in the neck. I mean, they're time consuming. I mean, there's money out there. It's just, there's a lot of reporting, there's a lot of, it's all good that they require all these steps, but it does take time. So, and when I see some of the amounts of money that are being brought into other watersheds through grants, some big grants, I mean, there was like a $700,000 one that came into Cuba County to help with some of the farming best management practices, and we're just not getting that money. I feel like we're losing money just by not having somebody to assist with this. So, and that's not to say that municipalities aren't doing things already. They are. I mean, you guys are put in that grant, which is wonderful. Newfield put in the grants, and soil and water districts are doing the same. So this would be, working a lot with soil and water district offices, a lot with the Community Science Institute to identify, all right, what sub-watersheds are the worst? Where do we really need to focus our energies to, like, if the sub-watershed that's up in Cuba County, there's one called Grand Gully, which apparently has really high levels of all kinds of problems. Like, let's focus on that, and take the worst problems first. So, anyways, there's a lot of different ways you can go with this, but having someone to do that work, it would be very helpful.
Okay, well, I like the effort here. That's good, and I'd like to see it keep moving on in a positive direction.
Yeah, and I have to say, Cuba County, the director of plan there is Steve Lynch, and he has been so helpful, and just kind of going, come on, Tompkins County, come on, we can do this, we've done this in the Owasco, he spans Owasco watershed and Cuba, and so he's really seeing a dynamic group of people that are coalescing around each other, moving to get things going faster.
His watershed's a lot bigger than, well, by lakes is bigger than ours. Theoretically.
I'm sorry.
His watershed's in Skaneateles Lake, Owasco Lake, and Cuba Lake. So if you think about it, Cuba County hits all three of those lakes. So it does. So it's I imagine he's got an interest in just not just Owasco, but Cuba and Skaneateles as well.
Yeah, he's been a really good advocate, very smart and very, very helpful. It's wonderful, actually. There's a lot of people who are just offering to help us here in Cuba Lake, which is terrific.
That's all I have.
Okay, Joe?
What's your timeline for hiring a watershed manager?
That is like a perfect question. And I wish I could have the answer to that, but I don't really know if everybody's going to, pay your dues. So it'll kind of depend on how much money we bring in. What we're considering doing is, Ian Smith works out of the Finger Lakes Institute, and so if our watershed doesn't bring in enough money for a full-time person, I've already talked with Ian and said, is there some way that we could package our work together? The watersheds are very similar, and some of the projects that they could do would be similar too. So, could we hire someone, that would work for both municipalities that might be part-time? And so I don't know. As soon as we hit that enough money to sustainably hire somebody, then we'll do it. But, we kind of have to get there, and with this phased-in approach, we're only, even if everybody paid 100%, we'd only be at 45,000. So, hopefully by 2024, we'll have 90,000 and it'll be in municipal budgets. Having done town budgets before, I'm familiar with, you need to get a line in there first, and that's kind of a big ask because, it's an increase, so.
I totally support this project and would like to move on it as quickly as we can.
Okay. Anything else, Joe? No. One question I do have for you, Liz, is how to implement this. Let's say hypothetically we put in our budget and the budget passes, and it's a line item that we are committed to, just like we are to the $7,000 that we give, right, for the other project. Is that something that we do not pay until you get letters of commitment from every municipality? Or do you take the money and you put it into a pot for now, waiting for other commitments? Let's say hypothetically, there's 10 different municipalities, whatever, that are in here. I forget how many you had on the list there, and only 9 do it and 1 doesn't. Do we send over the money beforehand, or do we wait until all 10 are in, and then we send the money over? That would be just a question I'd have for you now. And I don't know if you have the answer, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but for a lot of stuff is that, okay, we're committed, but it sounds like unless everyone is in, it's not going to happen.
Well, I guess I'm not, we can look at it that way, but historically, what has happened is that the municipalities that pay, which is about half of them, have paid in, and we've had a consistent $90,000 a year. So the municipalities that have been paying continually pay. I would expect that model to keep on going. We don't. So to answer your question directly, no, we are hoping that every municipality pays, but with the reality knowing that not 100% are going to pay. Each board has to make up their own mind whether this is a worthy cause, whether whether they have enough money in the budget. Some of the municipalities like Lodi they don't have any shoreline. They pay, actually, they do pay their dues, and they have for a long time, but some of the ones that are away from the lake, don't have the interest or concern as much as those that do border the lake. So I don't know what it is, I'm not sure, but if we waited for everyone, I don't think that we would ever go anywhere. So no, we're just going ahead with the coalition of the willing, which is when I was in government, that was kind of the way it would go, you hope that everybody would be on board, but you get a coalition of the willing and you go ahead with those that want to participate.
So just for clarity, one of the concerns I have is that we're using taxpayers' money to provide a service. And we just want to be able to make sure that service would be provided if we put the money towards this is all. Because we obviously have a responsibility to our taxpayers who do this, and that's all. And I just want to see what, if not everyone pays, we would still get service out of this, and that would be my concern. The other thing I'd like to do right now is to shift this over to CJ. Do you have any comments about this, since you write a lot of grants, and hopefully you'll have continued success for the town of Lansing? Do you have any comments on this that might be able to enlighten us a little bit more?
Sure. What I would say is, Liz and Cuba Link Watershed and Municipal Organization did lend a letter of support for the recent Salmon Creek Stream realignment project that we recently put in a water quality improvement program grant for $600,000 for, and she also drummed up a letter of support from Steve Lynch, the Director of Planning that she mentioned from Cuba County, and has prioritized several projects within the town of Lansing as part of the restoration and protection plan, and very much appreciate the work that the IO does. And we want to continue to, I personally and professionally would appreciate support of that organization going forward, because not every municipality has the planning capacity and grant writing capacity of the town of Lansing, but we need to work with smaller municipalities to move projects forward.
Okay? Thank you, Liz.
Thank you. I wish I was there in person. I wish this pandemic were over, and it will be someday, and I'll be there in person to thank you.
We look forward to it. Thank you. Stay safe.
Okay, great. Take care.
Okay, let's move on then to item 6 on the Lansing Community Library report. And it's in your packet, and as people may have found out, the library is closed. And my understanding is talking to the librarian today, Susie, Susie Gumbert, that they have a leak in the roof, and they have bees. And the good news is, I'm sorry I'm taking some of your thunder away here,
That's all right.
is that none of the books, the thousands and thousands of books were damaged. I know this is near you also, Joe.
It's where the sun,
The books are.
not sunlight, what is it?
Skylight.
Skylight, yeah, that's what, and it's done it before, and when I was on the board, I asked them to please cover it, but it was never done.
As we had done at ours.
Yes.
Yes, for
And
that
they're
sake.
useless.
Yes,
Yes.
well,
The
anyway,
bees, can't figure out.
I'm not going to throw stones at them, that's their own,
No.
but I wish them well if they decide what to do with that, but I just wanted to, because people come up to you, why is the library closed?
That's why
Is
it's
it because of this? No, and as soon as the weather dries, hopefully soon, the roofer will be up there, and then it's just a matter of the bees being encouraged to go elsewhere.
That's right.
Whatever it costs them to go, just don't go there.
Yeah.
So, I'll leave that up to you if you have anything else to add to that.
No, that's fine. That's the
Okay.
latest news, you're right.
Item agenda 7 is the Lansing Youth Service Report, which is in your packet.
And they've been terribly active and served quite a few kids, a very full schedule, so that's very good for the summer, yep.
Wonderful. Okay, so now we're going to move on to, let's see, it'd be item 8 would be Mike Stigler, you here? You want to give a brief report, please?
Sure. I'll keep it brief.
I will.
We know you.
I know, I will, though. Number one, I wanted to congratulate Kyle Dake. We had Kyle Dake Day proclamation yesterday, so that was pretty fun. I also want to congratulate another Lansingite, Elizabeth Cree. She served the county for 34 years in the Board of Elections. She is retiring. So just Lansing people, can't keep us down, basically. The big news at the county is we are buying some property, so we're spending about $3 million. If you know where the county buildings are and the courthouse is, we're buying Key Bank and the law office next to it. And the thinking is we're going to build a brand-new building there that's going to be able to house several different departments, a center of government. I don't know if I like that name, but anyway, we could fit the Board of Elections in there. We could fit assessment, which is in that one small building, which we don't know what we're going to do with yet. Probably knock it down, maybe not, I don't know. But, so it's all very much in flux, but we are buying the property, and we will see where we go from there. We did buy some property, I remember a couple of years ago, down the road. We were thinking about putting the building there. I think we're going to maybe keep that land and keep it as parking, and maybe even expand parking there, because we do need more parking down for our county workers. COVID-19 cases, they are on the rise, as you know. Cases are hovering anywhere between 100, it seems, and 140. 35 new cases today, 11 people in the hospital. I'm hoping that that's the plateau. We're obviously keeping a close eye on that. Booster shots were just announced today by the county health department, so go to the county website if you're interested about that and what we're going to be doing to push those forward. Another big thing that's happening at the county is, we did the census last year, we're going to be redistricting, the whole state's doing this, but in the county, we're doing the same. We are inviting members of the community to apply for the volunteer role of redistricting commissioner. There's going to be 9 of these, and you can apply and become it, and then you can draw the new lines of the county and who's going to be represented by whom. And what election districts will look like. So we're looking for a diverse group, nonpartisan, independent community members They needed interest in data analysis, geography, and/or equitable representation. So that looks like about it. Those are the highlights. See? Nice and tight.
Is there any questions? We're going to look over. Any questions for Mike?
I got one, it doesn't, for the city.
Okay.
I just went on Green Street today and I noticed they were tearing down the parking garage.
Yeah, they're going to build so we're going to build there, not but one of the thing that's going to be built there. They're going to build affordable housing, about 200 units, so it's pretty big. But in concert with that, they're going to put up a new parking garage. And they're fitting it all in this, yeah, same footprint. They're going to put a new...
The new parking is going to go both Cinemapolis and the Convention Center and the housing are going to go on a half the speed.
You should have asked him, because he is directly impacted, so. And then they're going to put bookshelves throughout the parking garage. I don't know what that's about.
Another project over by the Marriott where the Rothschild building is, and that's another apartment building that's going up.
So Cinemapolis didn't get the...
They're staying, they might be closed for a short period while the construction happens right above them.
Right.
But they're just going to add layers to that building as it is now.
Yeah, we just did some work in there last year. Well, pre getting out of the pandemic for him. But I went by today and I didn't see any evidence of it. I saw 4 or 5 excavators with jackhammers on them.
Well, when they built that section, 10, 15 years ago, they built it with a foundation that allowed them to add layers above it.
It's a really great project. I mean, you get a good number of affordable housing units, you get more parking than you had before, and this convention center, we're hoping, will draw people in during the week, as opposed to just, we do great on the weekends by filling hotel rooms. It's the during the week stuff, and we've never had really a way to host a conference. And we're not talking big conferences, but there's a lot of little groups the clerks have their group, and if we could start attracting some of that business during the week was the theory. It should pay for itself, so, or at least the conference center should.
Andre, do you have any questions? No. Okay. Joe? No. Any movement on what's in it for us, because we represent Lansing, with the allocation of money?
Funny you ask. So I'm actually on that committee. There's a 3-member subcommittee of the larger committee, which is of the larger committee. So there's 3 of us. We're meeting again tomorrow. We're talking about doing it in tranches. So, because we got $20 million. We used it to pay a bunch of debt. The handshake deal was, yes, we're going to do it that way, so now we don't have to do this federal requirement of reporting, which is very helpful. There are some people who would just like to keep the money. I am not of that mind. I am of the mind of let's get as much of this money out as humanly possible, as quickly as possible. So I think we're going to do it in tranches. This year, we're going to release X amount of dollars, which will be a substantial part of it. Then next year, we're going to do a little bit less, and then the year after that, we're going to do a little bit less until we've spent out the large sum of this money. So that's where we're at.
2024, I believe, to spend, at least you do for ours.
We don't anymore because we've already spent it. See, so we've spent it on capital things, right? So we've washed the money. We've already taken care of the federal requirement because we've already spent it, but now, that's not what the money's for. We want to spend the money on the community.
Are there any projects in Lansing that are on this list for this month?
We're building the list now. So what's going to happen is there's going to be an application, which I will drop off with Pat and say, here's the application, and we're going to then read the applications.
I would also urge that you include CJ in this conversation because they work a lot.
Okay, I'll include CJ. Where is she?
Right behind you.
That. Sorry. I'll include CJ. No, I know.
Okay?
I definitely will. I'll include CJ. I include her in everything I send, so.
Okay.
All right.
Nothing else. Well, thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
So now we have on the next is the Park and Rec, Pat Carroll. His report is in your packet. And then we're going to go to, by the way, Pat's not here tonight. He's on vacation with family time, so that's always great. We encourage that. People work hard here, but they have to spend time away from here. Next is the highway report. Do you want me to say this up front, or do you want to wait till your report is done?
Your choice.
Okay, so we, as Michael's coming up, so our highway superintendent has resigned as of September 4th. So Cricket will no longer be with the highway department unless he changes his mind until September 4th, which means we, as a board, cannot do anything with resolutions. We can talk about scenarios, and chime in, guys, I'm off my lane here. We can talk about scenarios, we can talk about promotions. We cannot do anything until 12:01 on September, I'm not going to call emergency meeting at 12:01, on September 4th. So, having said that, what we can do is, if there are people out there, once again, if I'm overstepping my bounds, jump in, guy. We can discuss perhaps having people at our next board meeting be hired in those positions and make it retroactive. Because when our highway superintendent is gone, this gentleman will be doing the highway superintendent's work at his wage, until we find a new highway superintendent, or until someone is promoted from within. I'm being as exactly vague as I can here as far as this goes. I mean, there are certain people that are groomed for certain things for transitions. But once again, anyways, you understand what I'm talking about.
Can I ask a quick question here?
You can ask as many questions as you want, as long as you don't vote on anything tonight. We can bounce ideas off, so go ahead.
Well, presumably Mike's doing his job and will be doing the supervisor's job at the same time.
I hope not. I hope he does the superintendent's job. But thank you.
Well, but
Yeah.
his job needs to be done too, so I'm questioning, do we need to meet earlier to cut back on that logjam?
Well, once again, we can't do anything.
No, but we can set up a meeting for earlier in September now, to say we anticipate a need to meet earlier in September to deal with this issue that we foresee coming up.
If you want to.
Well, is it going to be an issue for you to be doing all these jobs at once?
It would definitely be nice to have the extra help, for sure. Yeah, without a doubt.
So if we met earlier, how soon would someone else be able to come in? That's, I guess, my question.
I would,
Well, okay, coming in, the people are there.
yeah.
The people are already there. You have your deputy already, which takes over, like when he's on vacation. Okay,
Right.
he's on vacation next week, he's doing those services, he has the authority to do it. He's going to run the highway department. You have someone else that's been assisting you, and if that person chooses to be the new highway superintendent deputy, everything is the same for that individual except to get $3 more. That's it. Now, if, let's say hypothetically, the new person coming in wants to also rearrange and do a foreman position, that type of thing, that might be something to discuss. But at our next meeting on the 15th, we can vote then to have Mr. Jones be the highway superintendent and Mr. Smith be the deputy superintendent. They may have been already doing those functions, but just pay them retroactively from the 5th. From a payroll standpoint and other things, it's easier to do that because we're in midstream and make it retroactive so they get paid for what they've done. We can discuss that at our next meeting on the 15th. And by the way, we can do emails back and forth, hypotheticals going back and forth, and have resolutions we've already done. We've gone through this before when Debbie Munson stepped down in January after she had 30 years in, and Deb Munson took over. I'm sorry, Debbie Crandall. And, yeah, my mistake. When Debbie Crandall stepped down, when she still had time on her elected position, and Debbie Munson took over, now she would, whoever that person is that is appointed, would be here for the full, this election cycle until next November. They'd have to run again, and then they'd have to run again after that. So they'd have 2 elections coming up in 2 years, not November 2nd, but the next November. And what we like to do is have continuity. That's why we always have people cross-trained and everything so it's the next person up. And a lot of times with the deputies, as has been with other deputies, when Jack French was the highway superintendent, Cricket took on a lot of the day-to-day duties. Michael has been doing a lot of day-to-day duties, so this isn't, even though it's going to be a bit of a learning curve if he's chosen, I always have to be vague about these things, but let's say if he is chosen, he has already been running the day-to-day activities on that. And like I said, I think Cricket's going on vacation next week, or whatever, so he's going to be running the show anyways, as all deputies do. But once again, come September 5th, there will not be a highway superintendent, but he will, by default, be running the show until we decide to get somebody new. And if that's the case, if he's the one that's chosen, then we'll just make it retroactive.
Got all that.
And at the same time, pick a deputy.
And that'll be, once again, we'll have that discussion, absolutely, and see where the deputy goes. And if the new highway superintendent wants to restructure, perhaps with a foreman, so you have crews with their authority, they can always do that. You've had it in the past, haven't you?
We did, yeah.
Yeah, so we're not in uncharted territory. It's just a matter of who's gonna play the next position is all, and that's by design why we do this.
So my question to you is, come September 5th, you will be acting superintendent.
Highway superintendent, right,
And
yep.
you will have enough people that you can shuffle to get the job done for the next week and a half until we can meet and decide what our longer-term plan will be.
Yes,
That's my concern,
Yep.
is to make sure that we aren't leaving you short-handed for a long period of time, because I know you guys have a lot on your plate, I know you guys are working everybody as much as you can, and when you miss somebody for a long period of time, you feel it.
oh, absolutely,
So
yep.
let me give you a little more background information, which might help you here. The job's been posted for a laborer. We've had that for a while.
Yeah, Charmaine posted that
So we're looking
twice.
for another position already, because we have people transitioning out. And so we're already having people out there, at least we hope people will apply for the job, but right now we haven't got many hits. So we're already started that search process, what, a month or two ago?
Yeah, 2 months ago.
Because the new mechanic coming in, the air position, right? Scott Weaver just retired, right, end of July, so that, we've already started that search. So for right now, we have to make do with what we have. And the good news is, now that number 5 is almost done, the water district, we can pull most of that crew over into the other stuff.
Yeah, we're pretty much to the services. DE trolley will start Monday, and we have probably 4 short sides left to do, and then it's restoration from there on out.
So more good news, in the resolution tonight, we're going to, I believe, give someone of our employees here a bump in pay, because they just got their CDL license.
Yep.
So we've got another guy that can drive Tonkas, along with these, and next person up, as we always do with the rec department. And Ty Todd, who we just hired full-time in the rec department, he also is working on his CDL. So we can have interchangeable parts here
Right,
by design.
yep. I feel comfortable. I mean, there's a reason I took the oath and am in the position I'm in. And with your help and guidance, I feel confident.
We've had many conversations, haven't we?
Yes.
All good.
Yep.
All good. So, okay, anything else? Other than that, this is like another.
Yeah,
right? I mean, my goodness, yeah.
That's
I'd
the
just
big
like to
thing.
say you've done your job extremely well.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And so I think the transition, no matter what it is, will be smooth. And you
I
should be
appreciate
very
it.
proud of that.
Thank you.
He's always put the town first, and he never whines. And he's a good man. So anyways, having said that, so, unless somebody here come back in the room, go ahead and talk, okay?
Well,
I think,
got it listed.
yeah, I mean, that's, you know, short and sweet with the Proville water line, it's a struggle. The last tie-in was a complete struggle for us. We had it all together, 142 inches of our last 8-inch ductile put together, and the existing 8-inch valve cracked. So out everything comes, and we work an hour late to button it up. But we beat the rain, it's all buttoned up. And we are finally on to, like I said, services and the restoration. You know, I'm hoping to have that done within 2 weeks, depending on how Trolley makes out with the long side bores. I'm not sure where we are with paving yet. I haven't heard back from Dalrymple. Hopefully I'll hear within a week or two, but We have one more pipe to change down on East Lake, and we'll be in great shape for them to come in and mill and do the paving there, so. Slowly but surely, we're creeping towards fall, which always puts my mind at a little higher stress level, but I feel confident we'll get the roads in good shape and be ready for winter. So, that's it.
Well, any other questions for Mike?
I guess my usual, what's happening with the road between school and Ludlowville, and are we looking at potentially opening that ever again?
I walked that again with Jim Morse from TG Miller. But we're, there's a lot of suggestions on the table. And as soon as I have more information from him, he's putting together numbers. I will get that to you, Moving the road, shifting the road, making it a walking path. How do you secure, we've lost over 5,000 yards of material. How do I get down that far and try to build myself back up and hold everything from going down? It's the entire concrete walls. There's 2 of them. I think they assume they were built in the 30s. They're undercut. There's no support there. How do we get down to the bottom of those? And the under drain is a concern. So there's more than just the failing of that steel wall that's hooked together and buckling. So.
I understand that. It needs to be safe, and I know people are walking it all the time, so if we could at least create a pathway that's safe for pedestrians for a short term, and work on a long-term solution.
Sure.
That might not be a bad thing to do. I know you've got signs saying don't go there.
Yep.
Okay. I've seen films of people going there.
Right. Right.
We know it's happening, and,
We're not going to be, once again, no admittance whatsoever, and if people choose not to, that'll be on them, but we have to make sure that if the place is unsafe, it's unsafe, and they've been notified. I'm concerned that somebody's going to get hurt on this, and all we can do is put the signs up, and so be it. My question to you is that, can this be done in phases or something over a year or 2 years if we chip away at it, if we find the money for it?
It might be able to. I mean, this is going to be a big decision. This is going to be probably a decision I'm going to ask for help from you guys on. I mean, this is a section road that no taxpayers live on, that if we close, we close. Work's been done before on repeat Larson, and that wasn't cheap. Probably 6 figures there, that he had contractors come in along with the town working on it. So you figure every 20-some years, if we're asking the taxpayers to pay out this money for a section road that no one lives on, that's a heavy burden. So
The other question I have is, let's say hypothetically, the money's found.
Yep.
Okay, I'm saying, I'm not,
Yep.
I don't say anything. How long will your crews be tied up? Because if you're tied up doing that, you're sacrificing all the other workload you have on those 3 or 4 whiteboards you have written down of stuff that needs to be done. This is very similar to Trip Hammer Terrace when they put together the new culvert. And that culvert, when I walked with Jack French, you could put 2 school buses end to end in it, and you wouldn't see them. It was that big. And there were 4x8 sheets, correct me if I'm wrong, of plates that you bolted together. It saved the taxpayers $250,000. Tremendous job by the highway guys. But it also tied up your crew for the whole summer. The other thing is that there's the risk and reward. That's what I'm saying. If you can chip away at this and maybe work on it when hopefully you have a very mild winter, and you can do that and maybe chip away at it. I don't know. I'm just trying to find solutions to this concern. But then again, if we commit all our crew there for the whole summer or whatever, there's going to be other areas that are going to, unfortunately, not be addressed.
Sure. Yep.
So these are all things we have to think about. Okay?
Yep.
Or we maybe farm it out.
We're looking into that as well. I asked for numbers both ways. Maybe a combined effort, maybe just them, maybe just us, so I can make sure that we service everybody.
Well, thank you for being patient with me, because I know you've already thought of these things. I know what you're doing, you've had a few years of this, so it's all good. So thank you.
I think with the school year starting up again soon, if we could at least create a pedestrian path that's safe, and safe is really important. But if we create at least a pedestrian path, I think it would keep people away from an edge that's more dangerous, because we know they're going to do it.
Yep.
And I think it's important to try to accommodate in any ways we can, if it can be done safely, and that safely is the key word here.
Sure.
Any other questions for Mike? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, CJ. So one of our grants, one of the grants that you've applied for is for a vac truck, right?
Yes, and good evening. One of the things that you will notice in the report I submitted is that we did submit 3 applications to the consolidated funding application. So one of them was for Highway Department's request for a vacuum truck. We're hoping to achieve the maximum award of $325,000 towards acquisition of that $444,000 vehicle. But that would be obviously ties together both the Highway Department and the presentation from Liz Thomas that you just saw. The Highway Department are stewards of water quality, so we're going to do our best to get them that money, yes.
You've been busy.
Yeah, totally. July is hardcore.
Yeah, post-grant syndrome, right?
It's all good, and of course, we applied with significant assistance from consultants, MJ Engineering, and Place Alliance, as well, of course, as Pat, Owen, and Jenna in Parks to submit a fresh application for the Myers Park reconfiguration project. And we're actually just out there today with some folks from Pizzo EV who are going to help us with some EV charging stations in the park, as well as a few other sites in the town. So just kind of a little bit of an aside there.
So these supercharger stations, how long does it take to charge an electric vehicle?
We're looking at options for both a DC fast charger, just because there is a significant amount of money available from DEC. They have a special grant for those, and Pizzo EV is going to help us look into that. But yeah, a full charge on a completely electric vehicle is somewhere in the neighborhood of half an hour for hundreds of miles. Now that said, of course, they do have a significant electric draw, so we'd have to be mindful of those charges. But we've reached out to, thanks to Cornell Cooperative Extension, some folks who basically do turnkey solutions for municipalities. So we'll have some good pro formas soon, basically on the different operating costs and the different models of the EV charging stations that will be available. So we'll bring those, I anticipate having those ready for you in advance of the September meeting.
And with some charges, the town gets a small stipend or something towards that, right?
That's a really great question. Yeah, there's, the town absolutely can collect a fee, and that can be a fee based on the cost of charging, and in some cases it's very nominal for the slower chargers. For that fast charger that we were just talking about, that would be a premium fee. So we'll look into that, because obviously the town isn't necessarily in the business of providing, I would say, a service for folks to fuel up. But that said, they really, for broad implementation of electric vehicles, there does need to be a certain amount of stations, and municipalities are really seen as a kind of initial, a way to kind of kickstart the additional implementation and adoption of electric vehicles more widespread.
So that would include, CJ, the upgrade of the service would have to.
Yeah, that's a great question, Doug, yeah.
As I understand, you're talking, at least 50 amp, 240 volt charger.
Yeah, that's exactly, just stepping back a little bit, this is getting into kind of grant land a little bit, but there's 3 separate grants. One of them actually is a direct program from NYSEG, and it's called the Make Ready program, which is essentially NYSEG comes to the location you would like to site the chargers, and then they bring the service. So for this site out here, say the chicken barbecue stand where we anticipate having maybe a fast charger, we would need a 400 amp service everywhere for a fast charging station, and we would need to upgrade it to a 200 amp service for just the level 2 chargers, so they're kind of a mid-level. And NYSEG does bear the cost because of this Public Service Commission order, I believe it's one of their orders, that requires the utilities to bring in all of the necessary infrastructure to get them hooked up. And then through a separate program, we get the cost of the stations themselves reimbursed up to 80%.
Sounds like a good deal. It's on a highway. I think it's a very good deal.
Yes, and the gentleman we've been working with, Ron Semp at Pizzo EV, came recommended to us by the folks at Cornell Cooperative Extension. Joe has been part of our working group as well. And we had a great group go out today. We had Percy and myself, Tom Butler from Planning Board, as well as a contingent from Parks. Go out and check out the different sites and walk them with Ron, and it was really educational, and we'll have some good numbers for you soon on what the actual cost to the town will be as well. It's kind of an aside, but, yeah.
Any other questions for CJ? Do you have any comments, CJ? Kind of like...
No, just unless if there's any questions on the report.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Or a comment, or a discussion, however you want to do it. This is all conversation, no...
Sure.
No...
Uh-oh.
And he sent out a very nice email about the CAC. And, you know, the interesting thing about these different committees, they go through growing pains. And where they grow. And this is an excellent, I think, thing going forward where there was some recommendations for the conservation easement program, right? If I'm following the same committee. Is that right? Is it the CAC, right? Is that the same one that does the conservation?
You got it. Mm-hmm.
And they have, there's a system, a policy it goes through, right? There's certain steps it has to go through to finally get to the end. And once again, their enthusiasm is there to do these the conservation easements. But I think, I'm going to ask your guidance also, we can implement a policy where they have to go through all these different steps first, just like we do, for instance, other advisory boards. Planning board, they have advisory boards, right? And a whole bit, they do that. The Town Center Committee is an advisory board, right? Same thing with the WSOP, amongst others, okay? So having said that, I'm going to ask for your guidance on this, that maybe we can implement those policies maybe at our next meeting, so we can methodically they can go through those steps before they finally come to the advice that they want to give, whatever that project is. And I think we can maybe use the email that Joe sent as a template. I'll let you maybe massage that, perhaps get some input on that as far as what you think, because you've been through some of these these conservation easements before, I think, in your previous employment, where this isn't the first time you looked at a conservation easement.
Certainly not, and I guess I would just preface any conversation about this by saying simply that the town currently just doesn't hold any conservation easements. Generally speaking, in the town, those are held by, for instance, Tompkins County, or sometimes Finger Lakes Land Trust. Notably, they've acquired a significant amount of land at the Sims parcel. Everyone may be familiar with the Cuba Cliffs project. There's also a couple Wetlands Reserve Program conservation easements held by USDA. Those are also conservation easements as well. It's just that the town, our planning department isn't quite analogous, say, to perhaps Highway Department or Parks and Recreation. It hasn't been around that long. And so we don't necessarily have some of the framework in place, for instance, to have a conservation easement program. And so I think, before going on too much about what I would envision, I would, of course, refer to town council as well, because I want to emphasize that an easement, a conservation easement, is a legal instrument, right? It confers rights. There's issues surrounding the acceptance of it and the implications for the donor, and it's generally speaking something that we would want to have, kind of like how we have an application for outside users for, water and sewer committee. We need a little bit of a framework of a process, and right now we simply just have an offer from a property owner who is considering donating a conservation easement on part of a parcel, and that's the extent of our conservation easement program. So I'm happy to come up with more information that I can share that has been developed in concert with the Conservation Advisory Council, who, by the way, is getting ready to build on the work that you have seen for the last many months of the natural resources inventory, the scenic resources inventory, onto now an open space index. They've selected a template they'd like to use. They're going to start talking to different consultants. We'll probably put out a request for proposal, and I anticipate preparing a grant to cover the cost of that project in full. So that's kind of where my thinking was going relative to Conservation Advisory Council. But that said, sometimes opportunities come up, and the town has a chance to react to them. So that said,
This is not, like I said, it's not a criticism, I call this a teachable moment for all of us, as this fairly new committee, this advisory committee moves forward, and perhaps this committee can come up and advise us to adopt the policy. I'd like to have some input first.
sure.
And perhaps confer with legal, find out the best way to implement that, but also get their input first before it comes to the town board, so at least they have an opportunity to make recommendations on how they can be moved forward and strengthen it, and I think their work is good. I simply don't want to, I want to protect them so that it doesn't look like the perception is not the reality. And if we have a policy in place that they follow, and I let their input on that, and then whenever it's ready to come to the board, we can discuss it. Fair enough?
Yeah, and I would say really what it comes down to, and the CAC did do something of this exercise at their last meeting, but generally speaking, when an easement is offered to the town, they typically would go through kind of almost like a prioritization exercise to evaluate the environmental characteristics that make that special, right? So why would, for instance, one conservation easement be of more value to the town than another, right? So they talk about the agricultural and ecological aspects of the conservation easement and essentially rank it and say, yes, town board, we recommend this because of X, Y, and Z. We just simply don't have that process in place currently, and it's not to say that we could not. And so if it's a priority to the town board, I want to make sure that you are able to see something here relatively soon with me working with town council.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions for her?
I would just agree with that, that I would like to see a system set up before we accept any kind of property that, says, here's what we're looking for, here's the criteria we're looking for, here's the process by which we will accept it.
Well, this is off your recommendation.
Yes, I heard it. Thank you.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on. Engineers report. Nothing there. Board ag. Now we come to the consent agenda, so walk me through this, Mrs. Hall. This is the consent agenda. Do we make a motion first, or do we read them all?
No, read them off first.
Thank you. Okay. So, okay, 2, 4, 6, 7. Okay, so let's go in alphabetical order for the consent agenda, then we'll make the motions, right? Okay. So, Andre, you want to do the first two?
Resolution accepting the 2020 year-end independent outside financial report and audit of town operations, procedures, funds, cash handling, procedures, and accounts. The second one, resolution to re-levy yearly water and sewer charges on the 2022 town and county tax bills.
Okay, like you want to do C and D?
Resolution to honor Robert Bob C. Baker. And D is resolution updating employee Eric Rozak's position and job classification due to fulfilling obligations and obtaining a CDL.
Okay, Joe, you want to do E, F, and G, please?
Resolution urging limited suspension by executive order of New York Open Meetings Law. Here we go. Resolution updating employee Eric, how do you pronounce his name?
No, I'm sorry.
No, just read that.
No, we're going
That's okay.
Approve audit and budget modifications and supervisory report.
That's it.
Okay,
And you did that also, right, for COVID?
yeah, that's what I should do.
All right, good, thank you. Now, Mrs. Hart. I'm waiting for you to catch up, because I always...
Well, I need a first and a second.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Doug Date,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Okay, item 15 in our packet. Motion to authorize town supervisor to execute letter of support for CS Energy's Yellow Vine Solar Energy Facility.
I'll move it.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay.
We're going to discuss it.
Okay, yeah. Now, further discussion?
I kind of agree with what Mike's saying. I feel like I'm asking to support something that I don't have a real full picture of. I don't have a map of what properties are going to be affected. I don't have an idea of what the agreement is going to be between the organization and the town. I also am somewhat concerned that most of the projects in Groton, and my understanding is Groton's not in favor of it. They're not supporting it. They're not producing a letter for it. And I feel a little odd to be saying we support a project that I don't feel I have a real understanding or could describe to someone what it is. I've got a vague understanding, and I know you guys have been trying to put stuff together, but I feel kind of odd saying I support a project that I can't really describe in any kind of detail. And I think that's where I'm at.
So do you have any more details for us? I know CJ's reached out to you before for some specifics.
Yeah, so as CJ brought up last meeting, there are a couple of pieces of information that are going to be part of our bid that will be released to the public. Our hope was to have those ready in advance of tonight's meeting. Unfortunately, they're still being drafted and they're not ready yet. And I really hesitate to put something in the public domain that might have discrepancy with something else that might come up. So, unfortunately, right now, no, we don't have more kind of paper to show you. So I, totally understand that it's it's a question mark that's out there. A little bit of clarification just on, the letter you mentioned, Groton's hasn't provided the letter. The reason last year that we approached Lansing with respect to the letter was, we have, I feel, a fairly good longer-term relationship with the town board of Lansing. We obviously were here during the time of the drafting of the revised solar law. So we just, felt that the relationship was a little more advanced. We felt a little more comfortable requesting that back in 2020. And honestly, this year we probably wouldn't be requesting it again if we hadn't, sort of received a similar letter in the past. So, understood that it is there's open questions and we're working to work on closing those. I will say I think the actual text of the letter is, we worked with CJ, I think, last year, we just updated the draft that we had. I think it's very factual. It speaks to the fact that we've been here, that we've spoken with the town. The town has a solar law and that, under a, hypothetically, quote-unquote, well-developed, project, that the town will be in support of that. But we understand that obviously, if you write it for us, it's, it is hypothetically in support of this particular project. So we definitely would appreciate the letter. We think that it would speak well to, our hope to partner with both towns in terms of working through the design of these projects and also working through, a couple of the things that came up last meeting, which are, how do we best maintain contact with the townspeople? How do we best make sure that we're working closely with the community for workforce development issues? That's a piece that we're doubly incentivized, because as a contractor, building solar projects in New York State, we're very short on labor. So that's, there's a lot of things that we're hoping to work with the town on. We're hoping that letter kind of memorializes our partnership. But that said, we don't feel that it's necessary for our bid. We feel that We are very confident in the you know, sort of value of this project and feel that we can live without it. So while we appreciate it, you know, I sort of certainly understand the board felt that, you know, there wasn't enough information at this point.
I'd sort of like to table it till next month, till we get in more information, and then also maybe Bronwyn will be here.
I don't feel comfortable, without any additional information at this point.
Any other questions? Okay, so we're a little vulnerable here. Okay, she's taken off, so I'm looking for reassurances, I'm looking for some nurturing, and I'm not getting it. I mean, she asked you, once again, this is a conversation, it's not a criticism, it's not, we're not, hopefully it's not condescending, but we look for certain keys for partners. We look for businesses here that are our partners. And we basically have been taking all the say out of this whole conversation. It would have been nice if you had come in and said, we have this project, here it is, and the details he asked. And I don't think it was company secrets to do this, just for this information, because we want to have a good relationship with you. We want you to be prosperous, and we want the farmers to be prosperous. Well, this is not off to a good start. And I tend to agree with the colleagues. I mean, I see reactions when we work with our partners, our potential partners. And I don't think it was unfair for C to ask for the information, and there was plenty of time to do it. I also would agree that I'm not comfortable voting on this tonight. Now, that's something that, I understand that when does the grant have to be in by?
Our bid is August 26th.
When?
August 26th.
Okay, so that's a bit of, we're not going to be able to do it by then, as far as that goes. I'm sorry, but once again, if there was some forthcoming here to say, okay, I think these questions were pretty reasonable. And like I said, as you had said, you just go forward without us. You know, we have projects by other entities that don't get our input. And but I also have to be fair to our taxpayers and say, look, they want information, and this project, I think it's only fair. And quite frankly, I don't feel comfortable voting on this either tonight. Now, that's something down the road that you present the information. Perhaps we could do it then. I'll be more than happy to bring you back and put you on the agenda, and you go forward with that. I think if anything, it would show a sign of good faith that you come back and give us more information on this, even though the deciding factor is not here. But I think for our residents, I think it would also, as we all know, when there's a gap of information, we get filled with a worst case scenario, and if anything, it's for your benefit also. Because whatever happens here, the next town's going to say, that was really great, or we'll fight this tooth and nail not to have him come in here. And so for many ways, it's in your vested interest to make sure this is a smooth, wonderful relationship, and that not only do you make a profit on this, the farmers also benefit, the town benefits through full assessment of the business, also the host community agreement, amongst other things, that only goes to the town besides the pilot. All these things are there. So I hope you seriously can reconsider, and if you can get something together to her quickly, I'll be happy to put it on the agenda for next month.
Yeah, I don't know if I can respond further to that, but yeah, absolutely. So, you know, to be clear, I didn't think that any of CJ's requests for information were unreasonable, and I'm not trying to say that any of what she requested is any kind of project secret or anything like that. We're going to be submitting it to NYSERDA, and it's as part of our bid package. We're working on it right now. And so it's likely to still be updated during the next 9 days, and I hesitate to put anything, too burdensome something. And so that was the only reason that we didn't have the right word tonight. So totally understand the decision to delay the vote. We appreciate the feedback. I think that, like I said at the last meeting, we have sort of an interesting balancing act to play of putting information out there that may change, as we go through, the continued land negotiations, which we've been in process since last month. There's been updates there. As we continue through, our initial environmental diligence, which has been underway, there's a balancing act of we want to be here and talking with you and hearing issues out as early as we can, but we also don't want to be showing you anything that is wrong, right?
Well, okay, why don't we do this? Why don't we keep this an open invitation? And when you feel comfortable, you can share the information with us, you come back to us, and then we can vote on if we support the project or not. It may or may not mean anything as far as your application goes, but I think for the town residents, amongst other things, and also future projects, this might be a nice step forward as far as the goodwill building that you're going to have, because once again, it's a great opportunity for you, in my opinion, to showcase your product and to have positive results from it, and be good partners with us. And so, like I said, we're having a conversation here, we'll keep the offer open to you, and when you have more information and you're comfortable with that, I know there's a lot of dynamics going on that you can't really give details on, I respect that, but I also want to give you an opportunity to continue to promote your product on that and to continue to have the best opportunity for positive results. Okay?
Absolutely, and we appreciate that. And like I said, we're going to continue to be in town and, hopefully presenting more and more information as we come along. Well in advance of any sort of official submissions at the state level to the Authorize process. And, I think the other thing that, like I said, we'd like to continue to work closely with the town on is how we best put that information out, not just at the town board level, but to the public and the local stakeholders, and also how we, could potentially work with the town on, some of the things that would be mutually beneficial, which I think top of mind for me is workforce development, job training, and internship opportunities. So just a couple of things that I think we'd like to continue working with, and, understand that we can table this potential letter for the moment, and we'll proceed, but come back next time with hopefully much more information to share.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions for, yes?
I guess my question is procedurally, this has been moved, are we tabling it, or are we just dropping it?
I would like to table it for right now.
Okay.
I understand tabling might be something that it could be 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, 12 months, whatever, but right now, until I get additional information, and that the board can actually discuss and analyze, and I'll send it to them as soon as I get it, and then we'll decide if it wants to be on the agenda.
Okay,
Okay?
that's fine, thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Safe travels. Okay? Okay. So, let's move on to number 16 then. Resolution approving Village Solars Trail Pathways Master Plan of the Town of Lansing, Land Use Ordinance, Plan Development Area Number 1, Village Circle, Village Solars.
I'll move that.
I'll second it.
Okay, so let's open up the floor, Rocco, for further discussion.
Yeah, the only
Why
question,
don't you come up to the microphone?
It's center stage, my friend.
So I see that there's 5 parts here, and 4 of them I have no questions about. They're perfectly, good for us. The only one I had is number 4. I was wondering if the board thought, and I'm okay with this either way. If you don't think this is necessary, then we don't have to do it. But I wonder if putting in some language about the fact that this future path is supposed to connect to off-site pathways, if that might be something that's worth adding to the resolution. And I guess that my rationale with that would be, let's say that, obviously CJ's been here and she knows how we've gone through it, but if we were to get into a situation where we had a new planner, it might be good for them to have some context as to why this part was delayed and, why we wanted to wait until we had future connections to off-site trails before building it. So, like I said, I'm perfectly good with this resolution either way. It's just one thing that I think might, help clear up some future confusion if it were to come up.
I want to back off, because I think you're referring to the draft that I sent out as opposed to the one that CJ sent out.
Well, I'm referring to the one right here that was up front, the consent agenda resolutions, and I'm looking at clause number 4, and that's on page 8.
Okay.
Can I make a recommendation? Because a lot of times, I understand if I can comprehend your comments here, that you're concerned that all of a sudden you build it, there's nothing to go to.
Well, I think,
Just let me finish.
yes, yeah, well, basically, yes.
Right, so it's like, says, the director of planning and his or her designee shall have the authority to implement the provisions of the future phase if connecting sidewalks depicted in revised village solars, PDA pathways, new exercise trail 2021-2022 prepared by Al Carboni, PELS, dated July. Can we put language in there that says, I hate to say half, you will build a path if there's some place to connect it to?
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually more or less what I'm asking for, is that they will,
I'm saying this is because I'm looking at Oakwood on the other side. I don't see Mr. Carbone doing the path over there. And it's going to come right to Warren Road. And when I visited you there the other day and did a walkthrough, you know, your crew is all set to go with, okay, let's see how many cars go through at a certain time. But if the path can't go anywhere, and the other thing I would state here, also put some teeth in this, is that you have so many months to complete this. Okay, so if there's one that's going to happen over here, okay, whatever that is, because dynamics may change, and now there's a path there waiting for you to connect, you are now obligated to do that.
yeah, and I think that works perfectly well for us. That's kind of the clarity that we're looking for here in terms of what the reasoning is for the delay, and then if you want to add timing for if that issue becomes resolved, yeah, then that's perfectly okay.
You build a path, but the other path is 50 yards over the other place. Who's going to connect to next here? But I want to put teeth in there, you're obligated. You're obligated if a path is available, and this is something we may want to think about for the long-term plan, is that you can get these paths here, but you have no place to go on the other side until something opens up, and what we said before. As we keep this conversation going, we find out that some of the older farms sell and people aren't around this area, they say, fine, go ahead, put it there, or different developers come in. We want to be able to be flexible, to put almost like a permanent right-of-way, like we do with the town center land, so the path is going to go in there. Okay, that's not going to, but where is it going to go? Well, where am I supposed to hook it up to?
Right.
Right? If you already build it, you've done your due diligence, but the path is someplace else on the other side of the road. How are you supposed to connect unless you're going to walk along Warren Road or walk along some other place? I want to be able to give you flexibility, but I also want to put teeth in it so you're obligated to do it when that arises.
Yeah, I think that's basically, I think we have the exact same goal in that regard.
I just want to put a little more flexibility in there, because I don't want to get two developers who are both saying, you build it first. And so I don't want to obligate that the other one has to be built first. I think if it's proposed or if it's planned, so that we don't have them both saying, well, when you build yours, I'll build mine, and neither one gets built.
Okay, so let's use the word plan and propose.
Okay.
Okay? That way, it is starting and the clock starts ticking. Okay.
Yeah, and if somebody has something before the board, then that's perfectly all right with us, because then there's, there's legal things happening in terms of it getting done, so.
Okay, Jesse, get your pen out. Here we go. Okay? So let's just put this to bed, but that way it gives you flexibility so that you're not obligated to put the path nowhere. But on the other hand, you also have flexibility because you've been very cooperative. You put the master plan together. And like I said, it's gorgeous up there. That community center is gorgeous. And I love the way that the clock's out there. Like I said, I told you before it should be named Rockwellville, maybe it should be named Lucenneville, because it is, and you're still going to build, and you still want to invest in our town. I appreciate that.
Well, like I said to you the other day, Ed, really, we have a whole bunch of people up there who are doing a bunch, so I appreciate the kind words about our family, but really it's been quite the group effort, and it's included the folks here at the town, quite frankly, whose flexibility has allowed us to create a one-of-a-kind, unique project, the only one in the area that I'm aware of that's renting to median-income people that's brand new, so.
Yeah, it's market-rate affordable housing.
That's not subsidized, I should say, because there is some subsidized stuff that does that, but for market rate, yes, you're correct.
All right, so what words you, okay, anybody else have any other comments? I want to take over the show here.
Let's finish this point.
All right, no, okay. So, as the authority to implement provisions of future phase, okay, how do we do this? Depicting, you have proposed or planned by either village solars or
neighboring project.
An adjacent project where there is connectivity.
Okay.
I had a moment there, don't ask me to repeat it, okay?
This is Jesse's turn, right? Yeah, ask you to repeat it.
Jesse, take one for the team here.
Yeah. Okay, so just if you can go directly through number 4. So the director of planning or his or her designee shall have the authority to implement the provisions of the future paved, if connecting sidewalk depicted on revised village solar. So where do you want if proposed or planned by village solars or adjacent property?
Have the authority to implement the provisions of future paved sidewalk, not take out if connecting, future paved sidewalk depicted on village solars, blah, 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 blah.
You gotta leave the if connecting, because that's defining which of the lines we're talking about.
Okay, we'll keep it in there.
It's a title.
If
So what you want to, are you ever sign?
So that's a sidewalk, if connecting sidewalk, if
You want it, we have to pay it.
If an adjacent, should we say sidewalk or path? If an adjacent path / sidewalk is planned or proposed.
Okay. So after sidewalk, we're putting if an adjacent path / sidewalk is planned or proposed.
Okay.
Why?
You want to give them 6 months?
Well, okay, what they proposed in October, I guess to the winter. Let's give them a year.
Okay.
That way you go through the whole season.
Yeah, that works for us, that works well.
Did I,
So what was the time frame?
1 year,
1 year, okay.
365 days, let's put down 365 days.
I just assumed that the director of planning wouldn't tell them to build it in December.
I want to give them flexibility in case,
I just assumed that would be reasonable on that aspect, but.
well, stranger things have happened, right? All right, are you comfortable with that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, and even with the old one, I would have been comfortable, but I think now it's even better, even more clear.
Anybody else want to, you probably have more.
I have more.
Okay, let's go through this one first. Are we all comfortable with this one first before we move on? It's kind of like a straw poll, unless somebody else has, let me rephrase that. Anybody else have any comments about this one?
I'd like to hear if CJ has any comments on it too.
No.
Okay. Since you're going to implement it.
So if that's the case, we're in our comfort zone here. Okay, what's the next one, Joe?
I would like the bus stop to be connected by sidewalks and not trails. And I recognize that that's been a moving target because the bus stop originally was going to be out on Warren Road where it was connected by sidewalks. And then we arranged to move it inward, which I think was good for everybody. But what didn't get adjusted was sidewalks leading to the bus stop. And so I like sidewalks leading from the north buildings and from the south buildings so that people can have an all-weather way to get to something. Because in the plan, there's 2 different kinds of paths. There's paths which are recreational, and then there's sidewalks which are more utilitarian. And I think the bus stop needs to be connected by the utilitarian sidewalks and not just the paths.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that over the past week, and I think that the best solution for us, because we're trying to hit sort of a middle ground here, which is that these paths typically cost, I don't quite remember the number offhand, I think it's $15 a square foot roughly for a concrete sidewalk that's, 4 feet by, or 5 feet by 4 inches thick. So, if we start getting into connecting like all of them through sidewalks, it gets to be a 6-figure bill pretty quick. If we were to take building 36, building 106, which are the ones directly to the north and the south, connect it through that would be about a $25,000 job, which we can do that, and that would connect those. And one nice thing about it would actually be that you could do a little crosswalk across it, and it would create, sort of a more residential, pedestrian type feel. So I think that could definitely work for us in terms of doing those 2. How does that strike you?
I think that would work. It connects the units into it and
Right.
All kind of connected to each other.
Because 106 and 36 are the ones that are directly to the north-south, and that would connect into the trails, and that would create a situation where, like you're saying, you could get to these things through the sidewalk itself instead of just through the trails.
That's my goal.
So, anybody else have any comments, questions on number?
I think Jesse has language questions.
Right, well, where exactly are you wanting to make another change in the resolution?
Number 6.
He's adding one.
Okay.
Do you have any help on this also? Because we have certain buildings you want to connect to.
Yeah, so in this one, and actually this is their physical addresses, the two that we would be thinking would be 36 Village Place and 106 Village Circle.
Okay.
And then we would have them connect it, Village Circle North, do a little crosswalk across it, have the other sidewalk go to the side of the bus stop where it would connect into that, and then you would have full ability to get to there through both sides.
So, name this again.
So we're having built number 36, what's it? 36?
Yep, number 36 was the first one, and number 106 was the second one.
Right, and they would be connected via sidewalks to the bus stop.
Right, and it would be sort of a T shape. You would have one long line from 36 all the way down to 106, connecting those sidewalks together, and then you'd have the T coming down to the bus stop.
And you already have a description of what the sidewalk should be.
It's 5 feet by 4 inches as according to section 270-67F, I believe was.
Same design, so we have continuity here.
Well, we got number 5, which says that all roadways, parking trails, we can just add sidewalks to number 5 in that list. And it would say they all have to be built according
But,
According to the code.
so in that code is the 5 feet wide, so many feet deep?
Yeah, 5 feet wide by 4 inches thick.
Okay, I just want to make reference that we have continuity with the construction of the sidewalks. Okay? Okay, so number 6 will be, item 6 will be, I don't know how to say this, number 36 and number 106.
Buildings.
Buildings, thank you. 36 and 106 will be, a sidewalk will be installed, connecting it to the bus stop, and there's more than one bus stop, so you need to designate which bus stop.
The bus stop on Village Circle North is the one that we're talking about.
And those, I want to make sure, because we don't want to have you run all the way over the other one, right? Okay.
Yep, no, that's definitely true, and it's a good point.
Okay, as per and built as per requirements in Town Code, Section 207-67F. Right?
I think it says 276, yeah.
Thank you. I got my glasses, that's why I kind of like question marks. So 270-67F, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I can get it.
Okay.
You want to read it back to us then, if you were okay with that?
I'm okay with it.
Okay, can you read it back to us so we hear it?
Yeah. We're going to be connecting 36 Village Place and 106 Village Circle by installing a sidewalk to the bus stop and per section 270-6F.
6-7.
6-7F.
Yeah, 6,
It's right above.
7F. I missed the 7, thank you.
And we need to designate which bus
And which
stop.
bus stop was it?
Oh, the Village Circle North.
Circle North.
Good.
If you wanted to connect them all to the other bus stop, that'd be okay too.
Well, I'll tell you, Joe, honestly, the more sidewalk we're able to put in, it'd be better. It's just sort of a funding issue. Like I said, that $15 a square foot does come in, but this is going to really improve the project, so I'm glad that we're doing it.
Are you comfortable with that?
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
It's not that time.
Okay, are you comfortable with the language?
No,
Okay.
I'm just fine.
Okay, you?
I'm fine.
Are there any other questions or changes or conversation you want to have?
I just want to make sure that CJ's okay with the new number 6. Is that what we're doing?
that's fine.
Okay. And Guy, I assume will step in if we're stepping over some.
I can't stop any yes recusal.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, I mean,
Okay.
Having said that, as per the changes requested by the town board,
I have one more comment. And my last comment,
I just wanted to ask one question, just the intent is just to make sure that there's a clear pathway, especially during the winter.
yeah,
Okay, that's the overall intent of the 6th.
this is to have a utility path to the bus stop as opposed to just a recreational path. And when I went out there, last week sometime, I realized that all we have are these gravel trails or roads going to the bus stop, there's no actual sidewalk.
Right, and, the sidewalk will be cleared off at all times by our shoveling crews do the sidewalks every morning in the winter, so.
So I'm really glad that you looked into that. And the last thing that just bothered me was when I realized that one of your wayfinding signs that you put on this map is right next to the dumpsters.
Yeah.
And I'd just like to have them not next to the dumpsters. Put it next to the mailboxes, they're in that kind of corner too. But I would just like to be clear that both the wayfinding sign and the exercise things are like 100 feet from dumpsters.
Yeah, I thought that the not within 100 feet language, but perfectly reasonable, we're very happy to do that.
Okay, so I would put a number 7 that says wayfinding signs and exercise stations.
Talk slowly, please. Let me go, she write down this.
Yep, that's all. Wayfinding signs and exercise stations will be at least 100 feet from any dumpsters. Which again, if the dumpsters were on your map, you would have noticed that right away.
Right, and, we are doing a little bit of work in terms of thinking of where we're going to be moving some of that when everything is finished, and, some of that frankly depends on what might come after this next phase, which we haven't even talked to you folks about yet, so, definitely it's a good point though, and we will make sure that that stuff is not by the dumpster.
So, Jesse, did you get that?
Yep, I've got wayfinding signs and exercise stations will be at least 100 feet from any dumpsters.
Okay. and
As
CJ?
number 7.
Beautiful. CJ, you're okay with that? That works?
I mean, I do have some concern about putting kind of substantive enforcement language that's kind of variable within the waiver, in this resolution, I should say. But, if that's what it would take the town board to feel more comfortable, then that's okay. I think we can manage it.
I understand what you're saying, in terms of you'd like to have it, knocked down, but I also think that these kind of things, if they move a few hundred feet back and forth, will be within the spirit of the map that they gave us.
I saw, I saw the photographs and I just didn't want to necessarily kind of penalize the applicant for kind of what I affectionately call mattress season in the greater.
That's a great term, I've never heard that before.
I live downtown and, we know when mattress season is coming in late August, just saying. So, or late July, early August. So, I just didn't, I think I get the intent. I was just concerned about, kind of almost a zoning enforcement provision kind of within a resolution about the larger plan. But I think all things being equal, it's okay.
I think you can move that sign from next to the dumpsters where it's on the map, to over by the mailboxes, which is around the corner, pretty close to the same placement. It'd be 100 feet from it. It would actually be more visible there than it would be off to the side, because people are going to go to those mailboxes anyway.
Yeah, like I say, when I looked at it, it didn't seem like it would be too difficult to find another spot where that would work.
Let me just say one thing. CJ, is there any other language you feel more comfortable going forward because you have a concern about? All of a sudden now the planner or the code officer is the enforcer. Is there any other language you feel might be more suitable to achieve the same goal here?
It's a good question. It's more just like kind of like when we, just trying to think about the enforcement capacity of kind of doing that measurements. I think that would become somewhat cumbersome, as it were. But that said, it sounds like there is some future emphasis on perhaps site planning with an emphasis on screening of dumpsters, perhaps, and that could be a good opportunity maybe to examine some of those, finer grain site improvement elements that applicant is working on. So, I think it's fine to leave it.
Okay.
I think it's okay.
So moving forward then, so you seem to be comfortable with this? The board members, are we comfortable to move on?
Yes.
Okay, so we've had, as per the recommended changes
Yeah.
on the resolution, we've had those.
Yeah.
You stated them. So now it's time for vote?
Yes.
Okay, this is all?
Andrew Benson,
Yes.
Doug Dave,
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore,
Yes.
Edward Levine.
Yes. Okay,
All right, thank you folks so much.
always good to see you, my friend, stay well.
Absolutely, you do the same.
Okay, bye-bye. Item 17, resolution approving and authorizing the acceptance and filing of encroachment agreement for historical wellhead partly encroaching highway boundary of Hillcrest Road. I'll move it. I'll second it. Any further discussion?
I just have a question, why is this coming up now?
Well, I think we'll take maybe Guy out of the, Guy, you want to jump in on this, please?
Well, you go back about 50 or so years, Hillcrest Road existed and so did Warren Road, and it wasn't where this little wellhead thing is. And when they expanded the airport and realigned Warren Road, I gave you some maps from like the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, that required for intersectional purposes relaying Hillcrest Road in a different configuration. So they brought it out farther and then swung it around, and the land that was dedicated for Hillcrest Road had this well on it. So the town and the county accepted it with that wellhead being there, and no one really caught that it was over by a couple of feet. And that's really the genesis of it. And again, the house has been there since the 1830s, so it's extremely unlikely that the well was built in the highway right away. From all the mapping and research and title that was done both by myself and Peter Grossman, it's pretty clear that the road the encroachment came to the well didn't come to the encroachment. So why it hasn't come up before, I'm not sure, because mainly if it's a 2-foot situation like that, there's no history of a problem. Title companies will usually write over it. In this particular one, somebody said they'd like it handled. My big concern in coordinating with Mike was making sure that when you're going to approve something that might be in or stay in a highway right away, that it's not impeding travel and it's not impeding safety. This is a small little well house. So the big concern there, unlike another municipality where we had a rock wall that was built in the right of way, which I wouldn't approve, my concern is, does a vehicle have safe exit from the highway in the event of a sudden emergency? And this thing's tiny, a vehicle would go right over it. The other side of the coin is, of course, it's been there for at least 50 years, so it would be awful hard and perhaps even a hardship to force it to be moved. So what this agreement does is it says it can stay there, but if you ever rework the well or discontinue the well, you're going to have to move it. Now, whether or not they'll move the whole well or they'll just pipe over and then bring the wellhead up on their land, which would be the more logical solution, that'll be up to them. But at some point, whether for water, because they no longer need it for the water district, or it gets closed and they file a well closure report with DEC, then eventually the encroachment's going to go away. And again, it's not in the pavement, it's not in the shoulder, it's not in the ditch. It literally is this far over the outside edge on the bend as you come across Hillcrest and bounce up towards Warren.
Now, my question is, why is it coming out? Are they selling the property?
Yes.
That was my question. That was my part. I understood the rest of that. I didn't.
Oh, okay. I thought you were, why is it coming up now? Like, why didn't it come up 50 years
No, it's like,
ago?
why is it coming out?
Okay, well, that was not an explanation for that. Yeah, they sold the land and the buyer wants to make sure that this is covered and that the town won't just suddenly show up and slap them with a big bill.
Got it, thank you.
Sorry.
It came up before, I don't know why.
Any other questions? The board members? Mrs. Hall?
Andrew Benson.
Yes.
Doug Dave.
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore.
Yes.
Ed Levine.
Yes. I have a question. We have a resolution, our consent agenda, and one of them was obviously approving.
Wait
Wait a minute.
F, you mean, is on the agenda,
But
not in your minute template, yes.
That was why I got confused.
Yeah,
Because I was seeing more of them here than I was here, and I was like, there's something missing.
yeah,
But
it was in the working docs, it's just not in your minute template.
So we have G, so all these A through G have been approved, correct?
Yes, and so F, we're gonna need to just do its own,
That's the audit budget modifications?
no.
No, it's
That's
resolution adopting updated COVID guidelines. for
Remember,
rules of town
that's
building.
right, that's right.
I move it.
Thank you, second. Any further discussion?
Is there a second?
I think Ed is saying he's
Oh,
seconding it.
okay. All right, I thought he was calling.
That's my mistake, I didn't put it in the minutes.
No, it's not, we just,
Yeah,
That's what I got caught.
Yeah, that's right, because we read it off.
Yes, thank you.
okay, so we have a first and second, any further discussion? It's on the consent agenda, isn't it?
It is, but I'm going to move it to its own item because we're
Okay.
doing it outside of the consent agenda, so I'm going to take F off and then the
That's fine.
audit budget, we'll just move up and we'll put it as its own
You're
resolution.
just testing to see if we were alert, okay.
Or you're testing me, maybe I mentioned.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Andrew Benson?
Yes.
Doug Dave?
Yes.
Joseph Wetmore?
Yes.
Edward Levine?
Thank you, yes. Item 18, maybe we'll take a quick break after that.
Good idea.
Board member reports, we'll start with Andre, you lead off.
Okay, the report for the library is here, the report for Lansing Youth Services is here. We talked about the CAC, which I could not attend because I was in Denver, and also I did not attend the Environmental Management Council for the same reason. So that's my report.
Awesome. Doug?
I was not able to attend the previous planning board meeting, I had something come up. So Joe did report on it, and see in an email he sent today. So Joe, if you pick me up on this, I would.
I gave a written report, and I guess the question is, does anyone have any questions?
Nope.
I hope it was good.
Nope. Anything else? Okay, I'll make this quick. We'll talk about this other stuff. This is about the budget, real quick. We're starting the tabulation of things, right? And I gave everybody this meeting, okay, we'll at least do one. And the guidelines are in this book on page 5. We all get these little magazines, which are so adorable, okay? So we're following those. All the different department heads are piling all their stuff in. And Charmaine is moving as fast as she can, but we have a new information aide. So Mary Ellen Albrecht. She also has HR experience, so when the safety committee says you need to talk, send this to the HR person, we now have someone we can send it to. She has extreme experience with that. She's catching on quite fast, which is encouraging. And she will do like the auditors do. She will pick out things that maybe we have missed, not intentionally, but that way we'll make sure that we're compliant, and that's all good. Okay? So that's all we are with that. And we'll move forward with this and hopefully have something by our next meeting. What else? That's all I have for now because we'll talk about this other stuff later. And do you want to take a 10-minute break, Mrs. Benson?
Well, not just me,
I'm
everybody.
just talking to you first, that's all.
I think it's a great idea, Mr. Levine.
Yeah, so why don't we take a 10-minute break and come back and start looking at the other stuff.
And you're going to hit the button so we're on YouTube.